Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Brimlow, and today I'd like to talk to you about the parts of a circle as well as how to find circumference of a circle. So if you have the packet, you can turn to the first page, or if you don't have the packet, you can click the link that I've provided in Canvas. Okay. So you probably haven't studied circles in depth too much in previous years. So before we even talk about what circumference is or how to find it, we're going to talk about the parts of a circle. As there's going to be some vocab terms you have to be comfortable using through this unit. Okay. So we have this nice picture and diagram in color for us, and I've listed the words over here and their definitions that make up the circle. So I'm going to kind of go out of order here, but you have all the information here that you need. So starting here, if you could draw a little dot in the middle or center of your circle, we call this the center. And this point is what we say is equidistant or equal distance to all other points on the circle. So from here to here, it's the same distance no matter what part you talk about on what you can see is called the circumference. Okay. This line going right through the middle, almost cutting the circle in half, is called the diameter. And it's the distance from one side of the circle to the other through the center. So it goes right through the middle, right through the center, and it's the distance across. Then you're going to see we have a smaller line we call the radius. And the radius is just from the center to one side of the circle. It's half the distance of the diameter. And then around the outer edge is what we call the circumference, and that's the distance around a circle. It's kind of like perimeter when you think about shapes we've seen in the past. So these are all the parts, these are all the words you need to familiarize yourself with, you need to be comfortable with as we move through this part of the unit. Okay. All right, so today we're going to focus on and talk about circumference of a circle. So that's the distance around a circle or perimeter. And how do we find it? So there are a few things we need to know. First, we need to know that when we are working with circles, we're going to be using the number pi. And pi goes on and on forever. They still haven't found the end to it. It's probably the most famous irrational number. For our purposes, we're going to round pi to 3.14. So we're going to use pi as 3.14 in all of our examples. If you have the pi button on your calculator, you could use it. It's just going to make your answer more accurate. But pi is equal to 3.14. So there are two different formulas you could use to find circumference. It just depends on the information given to you in a problem. So to find circumference, you can either do pi times d, which means diameter, or circumference equals 2 times the radius times pi. You might also see it as 2 pi r on the internet if you're ever watching videos or just looking for some extra help. So once again, pi times diameter or 2 times the radius times pi. Realizing that 2 times the radius and diameter are the same thing. Radius is half the diameter, so if I double it, it will give me the diameter distance across the circle through the center. Once again, depending on the information provided, it will guide you to which formula you should use. So if we take a look, this example gives us the radius. It's only half the distance from one part of the circle to the other side, going through the center. So it's 14 meters. So we're going to use the formula circumference equals 2r pi. Whenever we're getting into higher levels of math, so whenever you're given a formula, that should be the first step of your work. It helps you go through the process, and it helps you to organize your work. So that should be the first step. Now I'm going to go ahead and substitute in what I know. So I have 2, and I'm just multiplying. So the radius is 14. And then times pi, which we're going to use 3.14. And then I'm just going to multiply this all together. So I'm just going to need a minute to get the calculator on my computer. I apologize. Here we go. I have two screens at home, so I have this calculator up on my other screen. So we're doing 2 times 14 times 3.14. And we get 87.92, and we label it meters because that is what they give us for measurements, units of measurements. Okay. It's not squared because we're not talking about area, so it would just be meters. Okay. All right, so next problem. This line is going all the way through the center from one side of the circle to the other. So this is the diameter at 18 inches. So we're going to be using the formula circumference equals pi times diameter. So 3.14 times the diameter of 18. So circumference equals, I'm just gonna, sorry, that slid. I'm just using my calculator. So pi times 18 is 56.52. So 56.52 meters. Okay. Now, I want to come back to these two for a second, as I didn't address it while we were working through the problems, but you want to also get comfortable going back and forth between diameter and radius, especially as we move into area tomorrow. So if you're given the radius, but you need the diameter, what you need to do is double it because it's half the distance. So if the distance here is 14, then all the way across would be double that at 28, okay? And tomorrow, when we look at area, we can only use the radius in the formula. So in this case, we were given diameter, so I need to be able to find the radius. Well, radius is half the distance, so half of 18 is 9. So we would have that for our problem, if needed or depending on the question, okay? So once again, in today's lesson, we reviewed the parts of a circle, and we also learned how to calculate circumference of a circle. So take a look at Canvas for your practice options. If you have any questions, let me know, and I